do you do when you've written a romance novel and told by publishers that the subgenre in which you've written doesn't exist and there isn't a market for it? If you're Latrivia Welch, you start your own publishing company and create your niche. Let's now hear this interesting story. This is Conversations with Hutch, and I'm so glad, I am honored, beyond honored, to have with us today Miss Latrivia Nelson Welch. And once you hear this interview, you'll be glad that, number one, you watched it, and then you'll be impressed with all the things that she's been able to do. First of all, Latrivia, welcome to Conversations with Hutch.
Thank you, Dr. Hutchinson. Thank you so much for having me. It's good to see my dear friend.
Oh, have mercy. Well, I appreciate that. And yes, we know each other, and that'll come out in the interview, but she's not on here because she knows me, but she's on here because she has done some formidable work. We're going to get into that. Well, first of all, tell us where you're from and a little bit about you, where you went to school, the basic, interview type, bio type stuff.
The bio stuff. Okay, so my name is Latrivia Welch, but originally it was Latrivia Artist, and I hail from the artist family. And grew up in Horn Lake, Mississippi. I know sounds like it's far from Memphis, but it's not. It's literally a suburb. You could walk literally right down the street. Was a Horn Lake Eagle, ran track like from middle school all the way through high school, and loved it in college. And then was a bit of a nerd on the side of being an athlete, and I definitely enjoyed that. And so instead of taking a scholarship to run track, I took a full presidential scholarship to Lemoyne on HBCU all the way, go Magicians, where I focused on business administration, where I pledged AKA and was Miss Lemoyne in college. Loved every moment of that opportunity. Cried when I graduated and walked across the stage because it had been such an amazing experience.
I had no idea you were Miss Lemoyne in college.
I was.
Kudos to you, Queen. Kudos. But keep going. I'm sorry.
Thank you. No. So yeah, my background is in business, marketing, PR. I've worked for the likes of the National Civil Rights Museum, under the tutelage and guidance of Beverly Robertson. Worked for Trust Marketing, Howard Robertson, a major PR firm here, and then also Alsac St. Jude. Worked on a lot of different projects with the Memphis Redbirds. We worked with them on their inaugural season opening. So when I say hometown girl, even NBA now to bring the Grizzlies here. So this is definitely home. EDGE, the Economic Development Growth Engine, just a lot of different organizations focused on either social impacts or health impacts or, economic impacts. And so that's the work, that I did early on. So,
well, let's talk about how you transitioned from that, because, I'm aware of that. But now you are in an interesting genre. First of all, you're a writer.
I am.
You're a successful writer. How did you get into writing, and kind of talk about also the genre you're in, which is interracial romance?
So I started writing very early. As soon as I picked up a pencil. My first story was a short story that was actually published in the Commercial Appeal when I was in kindergarten. I wrote some short stories and little books all the way from kindergarten to literally college. And I knew I wanted to publish books. I was a very big romantic, loved writing romance, and really just wanted to always be an author. That was part of it. I wanted to own a business, and I wanted to be an author. I remember in kindergarten, I had a little company called Zeke, and Big Bird was a part of my board of directors. I grew out of that, but Big Bird no longer sits on the board, but I still own several
But you always had a business mind. That's the main thing.
Right. So in college, I'd written a really awesome book, and it was the start of Ivy's Twisted Vine, which is the first book that I produced. But it wasn't until I was at Camp Lejeune, I was a military wife, that I decided that I really wanted to get into the genre. By then, I'd finished my master's, and I really was looking for a literary agent and a home in terms of a publishing house. But because I wrote interracial romance, I could not find one. I'd reached out to several literary agents, and they told me that there was no genre for, that there was no audience for it, and therefore no genre for interracial romance, even though there were quite a few interracial romance authors out there, at least a little more than a handful of them who were doing exceptionally well. But I mean, telling me no didn't shut me down after I'd gone through the gauntlet and done all the query letters and reached out. I decided that, telling me no meant that you hadn't, and you as being the publishing industry had not necessarily embraced that as an opportunity, but it didn't mean that there wasn't one out there. So I created one with RiverHouse Publishing. I went to the library on base and got every publishing book known to man. I started to study what it would take to create a publishing industry, a publishing home for myself, and came back to Memphis shortly after, and I launched RiverHouse Publishing right here in my home of Memphis, Tennessee. I was my first author, and we rolled out after Ivy's Twisted Vine, which was self-published, and the largest book in the interracial romance genre. That was back in 2008. In 2010, RiverHouse came online, and Dimitri's Closet, which was my first book, and it actually was the first not only interracial romance but organized crime genre interracial romance. So I have this this little title that has been assigned to me as the godmother of Russian mafia romance. So a lot of times you see all of these Russian mafia romance movies and books that are out there. It started with Dimitri's Closet, which was not easy. I was told I was crazy for writing it. I was told that it was just not marketable. Again, the naysayers are always there at the beginning, right?
Exactly.
But with all of the bad press that came with putting that book online, there came so much good from it. Fans who were very supportive, who understood that we were young and new, that we didn't have all of the things that publishing houses had yet, but they knew that we had passion, right? And so we got out there with what we had, and we went from one author, which was myself, to now over 50, somewhere nearing 75, and we're changing sort of our tune and sort of thinking bigger even now. We went from selling 50 books when Ivy's Twisted Vine first started to 500 to when she first started to now, when all of the 38 books that I have and all of the other authors, we've sold countless books under my name alone. We've sold over 1 million books, more toward like 1.25 million.
Wait. Put a pin right there. You have sold over 1.2 million books.
Yes.
In a genre that wasn't supposed to exist, that wasn't marketable at all. And let me say this as an aside. I've seen some other writers do exactly what you're doing now. There's by at least 4 or 5 of them I can think of off the top of my head. One in Chicago, one, I've seen a bunch of them.
Yeah.
And it started with you.
It started with me. And I really credit all of it to, at the time I was working for the Carter Malone Group, and Deidre Malone, who's my mentor and a really dear family friend. She came in, and she was the first African-American female to run successfully and win the primary Shelby County mayoral's race. Prior to that, she had been Shelby County Commissioner, the first Black chair Shelby County Commissioner. I mean, really big here in Memphis, right, where Dr. King was assassinated. A woman, an African-American woman, was knocking down a lot of barriers. I told her I wanted to do this, and she said, "Trivy, just write the damn book." Those were her exact words. She pushed me every day, not only to learn more about PR and really learn about the skill, but she pushed me to follow my dreams. She wanted to not only see her business a success, she wanted for me to have a legacy and start my own business. And she really walked me through how to make the company sustainable.
That's a good testimony. And so you were able to grow it and you were able to shape your own business. And I'm proud to say I'm one of the authors that have come through RiverHouse.
Yes, you
so
are.
that's how we met. Because I remember when you had I guess it was a down to earth, I don't even know if I call it a seminar or whatever it was, when you were at that coffee house where you basically said, here's my book. But beyond that, if you want to write, here's some of the things you need to look at. And you talked about your publishing company. And I told you then, even though it took me about 3 or 4 years to do it, I said, I'm going to write a book. And when I write it, I want you to publish it.
We were very happy to, because you are very, very talented. And that's the whole point. RiverHouse is designed to be for bold authors with bold statements. You know, we take seasoned indie authors, we take first-time authors, and what we do is we give them the benchmarks needed to be successful in the industry. And the rest is really up to the market. You know, it's like, we know that you have a marketable book. It's about getting out there in the market and making sure that you can tell someone in Tulsa, Oklahoma, someone in Angola, Africa, someone who is, you know, in Sydney, Australia, or in London, that they can pick up your book and it's very accessible. So that is a part of what we do, is providing a really strong distribution line for your books, both in ebook and paperback. We make sure that you are happy with what you present, and then we show you how to model that and to do it eventually for yourself, because we're a launchpad publishing house. We're designed to help you get started, but ultimately we want you to grow your own business.
Well, now let me go back to something you said. 1.2 million books. I know Hollywood has had to come knocking and tried to find you.
Yes.
In terms of what you're doing. So talk about that whole experience.
I've had several major studios, production companies approach me about books. Thank goodness now that I have an agent who handles certain aspects of that. But I do remember the first time I thought it was a joke. So that someone approached me, David Winkler and the Winkler Group contacted me. You've seen them with Rocky and with Raging Bull and quite a few other movies. And I honestly thought my friends were pranking me because, again, I grew up watching every kind of mafia movie ever known to man. I mean, everything you can think of. I'd seen The Untouchables, I'd seen The Godfather, I'd seen every De Niro film, Scarface, you name it. And I think the purpose of me sort of going beyond just interracial romance and sort of moving into these thrillers and action books was that when I was growing up and we watched a lot of these films, they were not inclusive. And then when the characters spoke about African Americans, it was in a very derogatory way. Now, keep in mind, we are talking about organized crime in the first place. So there is no PR way to do that, right? There's no PC way, should I say, to do organized crime. Oh, well, while we're cutting your head off, we're going to ensure that we call you by your proper pronouns. I realize that that is not necessarily the way it goes, but I did want to see representation of women of color as heroines, as movers and shakers, as, the Helen of Troy, if you will. And so that was one of the reasons why I wanted to write in this genre. My PhD studies were in organized crime, but PhD studies were in criminal justice, but a focus on organized crime. So I definitely understood, the foundations and sort of the way that organizations interacted. And so I was able to implement.
Yes, I already know you want to hear the rest. Well, you have to subscribe and wait for the next segment of this marvelous story. So you see the button, subscribe, and also tell your friends and share this video so they can hear this wonderful story and others from Conversations with Hutch.